What is up, guys? So today we're going to talk about the pet system in this game, and I'm just going to list out some of the pros and cons, and then ultimately I'm going to give you what my opinion is on this feature. And if you have a different opinion, please feel free to discuss it or share it down below. Do bear in mind that this pet system is relatively new, so I have a feeling that they might change something in the future. If they do, I'm gonna include my thoughts in the description down below, or I'm just gonna update and make another new video altogether. So let's get started. So first off, we have the Calico Kitten that was given to us by default, and the Calico Kitten can give you 15 minutes of soul drop buff every day. Next, we have Lihua, Shiba, Vangandishi, and Akita. So in total, you can get a 12-minute coin buff and a 12-minute experience buff every day. Granted, they don't seem much, but if you accumulate them each day, it will only take 5 days to get 1 hour's worth of buff. The next benefit for owning a pet is that they will give you prizes for bringing them to the Onmoyji dungeon each day. After you have fed and played with your pet each day, and you make sure that their hunger level and their happiness is above a certain threshold, you can then take them to the Onmoyji dungeon either through the co-op mode where you have to be the host, or you can just go in solo, and upon completion, your pets will give you prizes depending on their tiers. And according to their tiers, assuming that they are tier 3, all the pets will have a chance of giving you a random grade 5 to grade 6 soul, which you can then either release or equip it onto your shikis. So keep in mind that each grade 6 soul is worth 5,000 coins if you were to release them, so that's something to keep in mind if you're taking into consideration of the cost. So even for a grade 5 soul, if you release them, you can still get 1k, which is not bad. And you also get a shot of the reverse Onmoyji scales when you're releasing them. So the random souls are universal across all pets. For Lihua and Shiba, they will both give you a chance for a grade 2 to grade 3 moon card, which you can then use for fusing special cards, which could potentially yield more APs and more jades. And the other two, Vangandishi and Akita, they are harder to come by because they are more rare, so it might take you longer to adopt them. But if you do get them, Vangandishi will give you a chance for the Onmoyji reverse scale at tier 3. As for Akiba, you get what is called the Akita Puppy Reward Box, which may contain souls, jade, and ultimately a potential chance for a mystery amulet. If I were to rank which of the pets were my favorite, I would say Akita is the best one because I feel like the chance for a mystery amulet is always very sought after. And the next one would be the Calico Kitten, which was given to us by the system by default because the soul buffs is always very practical. And then Lihua and Shiba, I would say they come in third. And lastly, Vangandishi, because her name is very hard to pronounce, and also if you can reliably farm the Soul 10 dungeon, the Onmoyji reverse scales should come by pretty easily, and you don't really need to count on the few that you get from her. So now that we talk about the pros, we're going to talk about the cons. Some of the costs associated with feeding your pets. And based on my calculation, it's going to take 3 to 4 feedings per day per pet. And for the sake of this example, we're going to say it's going to cost 4 feedings per day. At the highest tier, it's going to cost you 5 APs per pet. So if you have all 5 pets, it's going to cost you 100 APs. Now that's assuming that they're at the highest tier. Now what if all your pets are at tier 1? It's only going to cost you 3 APs. So that's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12, times 5 equals to 60. Okay, so by comparison, it doesn't look too bad. But as I've mentioned before, at tier 3, you probably want to go for the tier 3 rewards, say Akita, so you can get the puppy reward box. So that's something for you to consider. If you want to really conserve your APs, you might need to pick and choose which pet you want to raise specifically. Otherwise, if you want to save yourself the headache, I say just go for all 5 pets. So now that we talk about the pros and cons of owning a pet, we're going to talk about how to adopt one. And this part is going to be fairly straightforward to most of you guys, but for the sake of completion, I'm going to go over them very briefly. So you want to start accumulating some pet foods so you can attract the pets into your backyard, and you can do that by completing the wanted quest or the co-op quest if you have a friend who can share that quest to you. It might take 1 to 3 months depending on how often you are able to gather the foods. So it will take some patience if you want to get off for pets. So once you have your food, you can go ahead and select the backyard, and this is where you can place the foods so that the pets will come to you. So depending on the grade level of the food that you're placing, it will affect the number of pets that are getting attracted into your yard. So obviously, the higher the grade, the more pets will come to your backyard. However, it's worth noting that even if you're putting down a high grade foods, it doesn't guarantee the more rare pets to come to your backyard. It only gives a more likely chance for you to meet them because there are more pets in your backyard. So by that, I'm talking about Venkindishi and Akita. So those pets, you'll notice after a few days that they are much harder to come by. So what that means is you'll probably get Lihua and Shiba way before you get the other 2 pets. But there's just no way around that. So you just gotta be patient and just keep putting foods down into your backyard. So besides placing the foods into your backyard, you also have the option to fuse the foods. However, I find this function to be quite useless because if you are trying to attract the pets into your backyard, chances are you will not have enough pet foods at some point. So you want to conserve those foods, and instead of fusing them, you want to save them and just use them all for attracting pets. So in conclusion, I would suggest you guys to bypass this feature altogether unless you're sure that you have way too many pet foods and you don't really have enough time to spend all of them. So another thing to note is the shikis that you're putting into the backyard is going to determine how long it will be until you get to place the foods into the backyard again. So obviously, the more rare the unit, the faster it will go. But this is not a big deal. Even if you don't have an SSR unit, you can just put down SR or even an N-grade unit because the hours it takes, the difference is really little. So it's not worth stressing over. Now, in terms of choosing whether if you want to put a dog-loving shiki or a cat-loving shiki, I would suggest you guys to go with the dog-loving shiki first, simply because that will give you a higher chance or maybe a faster rate of attracting Akita, which in my opinion is the best pet there is. Well, I'm going to show you guys a quick example of how it's going to look like after you have placed the foods into your backyard. So after some hours have passed, after you place the foods, a different number of pets is going to come to your backyard, and you can go ahead and click onto them. And by doing so, it's going to increase their affection level. Okay, so once their affection bar has reached 30, then you can go ahead and adopt them. And as I have mentioned before, Venkindishi and Akita, they are more rare, so it's going to take you more time to adopt them. So now that you have your pet, you need to make sure that they're both happy and full. And by doing so, the pet will reward you with the buff, and also you can take them to the Orochi dungeon after you have made sure that both bars are above the threshold, which is 60 at the moment. So just go ahead and make sure you feed them and collect your buffs. And unfortunately, you have to do this for all the pets, so I need to do this like 5 times every day, which can get annoying. But after you have made sure that both bars are above 60, I would recommend you guys to just take them to the dungeon, the Orochi dungeon, immediately so that the bar doesn't fall down the threshold again. just to be clear, you need both bars to be above the threshold when you clear the Orochi dungeon in order to receive the prizes from the particular pet. So now that we talked about the hunger level and the happiness level, we're gonna talk about the last bar, which is the growth. So we're gonna use Akita as an example because we just got him, and as you can see he's currently at 0 out of 15. So what that means is if you want to raise Akita's tier, you'll need to bring him to the Orochi dungeon for 15 days. And you need to make sure that when he is with you at the Orochi dungeon, both his hungerness and happiness are above 60, so that towards the end of the screen, you will receive the reward from him. So if you don't see the reward from Akita, then it doesn't count as a growth. And unfortunately, you can do this only once per day, so it will take you some time to raise the tier as well. So it will take you 15 days to go from tier 1 to tier 2, and then it's going to take 40 days to go from tier 2 to tier 3. So if you want the rewards from Akita, you better get started soon. So at the risk of sounding too repetitive, I'm going to remind you guys one more time that you need to either host the game or soloing Orochi dungeon in order to satisfy the requirement for the growth for your pet. So it won't count if you're just joining someone else's Orochi game. Upon clearing it, it doesn't count as your pet's victory. So in order to gain a growth and the prizes for that day, you need to host the game or you need to be creating the game and playing it solo. The last thing I want to talk about is the toy voucher and the paw coins. As you can see on the top of the screen here, I have 129 toy vouchers. And you can get the toy voucher by bringing your pet to the Orochi dungeon. You'll get the toy voucher as part of the reward for that day's prize. As for the paw coins, you can get them by attracting pets to your backyard. Keep in mind you need to attract pets where you already have the affection max. So instead of receiving the affection bar, instead you'll get the paw coins. And I'm leaving this for last because I feel like this is one of the least useful feature. It only makes a difference in your pet's appearance, so it's not really any urgent matter. But if you're interested in purchasing your accessories for your pets, that's how you go about it. But one thing to note is that any toy you purchase is by random, so whatever toy you have purchased might not suit the pet that you currently own. So just bear that in mind. So that's all I want to talk about in today's videos. Hopefully answer some of the questions if you guys are confused about the pet system. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below. And I'll see you guys next time.